Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. We're very excited to have all of you join us for today's very important webinar brought to you by the Africa-China Center for Policy and Advisory, the ACCPA. We're very privileged to come your way once again. It's a very webinar that we believe is going to be very insightful, and of course, the fact that we have lined up impressive speakers that we know have their own experiences in the discussion that we're going to have here today. So we believe that we're all going to have a very insightful session for today's webinar. My name is Paul Frimpong. I'm the Executive Director at the Africa-China Center for Policy and Advisory, the ACCPA. So briefly, for those that have joined us for the first time, the ACCPA, the Africa-China Center for Policy and Advisory, is a policy research think tank headquartered in Accra, Ghana. We have teams in Ethiopia, in Botswana, in the DRC, in Tanzania, in the UK, in China, and of course also in Nigeria as well. So what we're trying to do is to put together the African perspective when it comes to Africa-China relations. So we are full-fledged think tanks. We involve in knowledge production, and of course also organizing platform for knowledge exchange, whether in person or virtually, like we're having here today, to share more light on some of our key findings and some of the topics that we believe are relevant to the Africa-China relations. And most importantly, we believe that the African agency, the African voices, the African intellectual and scholarly works, it's very, very important in shaping a policy when it comes to Africa's engagement with China. As we always say, our interest is in Africa's right foot, in the conversation when it comes to our engagement with China. That's why we try as much as possible to assemble as many African expertise as possible so that we can lead the conversation, be at the forefront when it comes to our continuous engagement with China. So that's what the ACCPA is set up to do, basically, to be able to anchor the knowledge production and, of course, shaping policies and practicalizing these insights that we gather from our work to help government to set up real, tangible solutions when it comes to individual bilateral engagement with China, or even at the continental or regional level engagement with China. So on that note, it's one of the reasons why we are here today to have this very important conversation that we believe also goes to the core of the dynamics, the new routes that has been emanating as a result of China's own evolving global role, as we've all come to see and witness in the last decade or so. A number of initiatives that has come as a result of China's continuous taking up leading roles in some major initiatives around our world today, because of course it is the second largest economy in the world, and it's the largest developing country as well. Forms integral part of the countries in the global south, which is predominantly all African countries. So we believe that we have to really get deeper to understand how China's evolving role and the leadership role that is taking, launching initiatives, as we've seen in recent times, the Global Civilization Initiative, the Global Security Initiative, the Global Development Initiative, the very own Belt and Road Initiative, and others that we believe that are very important to Africa's own agenda and development trajectory. And so we try to juxtapose what those proposals, initiatives are in the context of Africa's development journey and the kind of ambition that we've set for ourselves as a continent, whether at the country level, at the regional level, or even at the continental level. So we believe that these are very important conversations to have. And so that is why today we are very excited to have these friends that I've met, throughout my journey on China, some I've met here in Africa, some I've met also on some of the activities and projects that we did Far East in China. And I believe and I know that all of them have insight that they can share with us so that we can better understand the dynamics in terms of some of the initiatives from China and what Africa's development journey and trajectory is, and the lessons in there, the challenges in there, and the kind of solution that we believe when we hone it out and we advocate and we get to the policy side, we can really, really effect positive change. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is what we are here to do. We believe that we're going to be here for about an hour, and then we are out of this place. So my job is the host. We have a moderator, and of course, we have our panel of speakers, about 3 panelists. All of them have joined us today. And in due time, the moderator will introduce our speakers. But before that, we have Alpha Jalal Mohamed, who is joining us from Guangzhou in China. We have Rana from Egypt. She's joining us from Egypt. And of course, my own Baba Olalekan, Dr. Olalekan Babatunde, joining us from Nigeria, also for this very important discussion. So for those of you who have joined us for the first time, if you're looking for a partnership in terms of the work that we do, we are more than happy to engage further. If you're in the media space and you want to have more discussion on Africa-China engagement, we need the African expertise. The ACCPA is almost always open to engage further, to speak with you, to speak with your media outlet, to share perspective based on the findings that we have. So you are free to reach out to us. I'll put my email address in the chat box, and then you can send an email directly to me or to the ACCPA, and we are more than happy to collaborate. Any form of collaboration, whether it's research collaboration, whether it's media collaboration, whether you work for a government in your country that you believe that our work is important to your government's new chat with China, of course, feel free to reach out to us, and we are very much happy to engage further. So we're going back to the webinar itself. We're looking at the Global Community Shared Future for Mankind. It is one of those initiatives that has been launched and, of course, spearheaded by China, by President Xi Jinping himself. And we just want to have a deeper comment. I will leave the details to our panelists and our moderator to take us through. So the webinar, it's more of in 3 parts, if I should say, or let's say in 2 parts, of course. The first part is the moderator will take over and engage our speakers. And the second part, you are going to come in, our participants. We are very much looking forward to hearing from you. So if you have questions, and if you're familiar with the Zoom app, or whether you're using the web or the app, there's a Q&A button on the screen of the Zoom app. You just put in your question there. So kindly use the Q&A for your questions. And the moderator, after some few minutes engagement with the speakers, will read out your question to the speaker for them to answer directly for you. So please, you can start preparing your questions as the conversation begins, and then you can put in your question via the Q&A button, and the speakers will definitely address those questions for you. Ladies and gentlemen, without much ado, I welcome you all to today's webinar. So we hope that we will have a very fruitful discussions and insightful engagement. So I'll hand over the baton now to Mazid, who is a research associate here at the ACCPA, who is going to be our moderator. She'll take over, introduce our speakers. If there are any house rules, she will let us know, and we wish all of us a fruitful engagement. Please, again, it's very important. Don't forget to put in your questions via the Q&A button. So speakers, please, you may on your cameras and your microphone so that we can begin. Mazid, please. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Frampon, I'd like to thank you so much for the opportunity to moderate this section. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And I'd like to once again thank all of you for joining us from different parts of the world as we engage virtually on one of the issues or one of the topics that has gained global significance in this current world, that is China's global community with a shared future for mankind, a vision that is shaping international relations and global cooperation in today's world. So today, at the end of the webinar, we are hoping to get to understand what actually the global community with a shared future is all about. We want to know how it has gained significant attention in recent years and the strategic initiatives that are guiding this vision, how China in its own way is leading the vision through its initiatives, leading the world towards a global community with a shared future. And we also want to know how Africa, or what role Africa can also play in this evolving global landscape. So we are looking forward to having a very interactive and insightful session. So as Mr. Frimpong mentioned earlier, in the course of the webinar, if you have any questions or any contribution, please feel free to send them in using the Q&A button, and in due time, it is going to be addressed by our speakers. Okay, so without much ado, I think we can proceed to hear from our speakers, but before I hand over to our speakers, please permit me to read their profiles. Okay, so we have with us Dr. Olalekan Babatunde, who is joining us from Nigeria. He is a part-time professor at the Xi Jinping University in China. Babatunde is a research fellow at the Nigeria Institute for Peace and Conflict Resolution, Abuja. He attended the University of Ilorin and Ibadan and holds a PhD in history from the University of Suez, South Africa. His main research interests include youth and violent extremism, migration, Africa history, and Africa-China relations. Babatunde has consulted for development organizations like the UNDP, UNESCO, IOM, and his writing has appeared in Peace Review, Journals of Transdisciplinary Peace Prizes, European Journal of Humanities and Social Sciences, Nobel Science Publishers, International Journal of Development Research, Palgrave Macmillan, and others. He is a member of the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs and Africa Evidence Network. Babatunde is a dedicated, enthusiastic, and consummate peace builder who loves reading, writing, and traveling. Okay, so Dr. Olalekan, please, you are welcome once again.
Thank you, Messi.
Okay, so we have also with us Dr. Alpha Mohamed Jula, who is currently the director of the China Africa Institute in the University of Makeni and a senior lecturer in the Faculty of Education. He has served as a consultant on the intervention, mapping, and data support for the DFID-funded Saving Lives in Sierra Leone program. He has over 10 years experience in coordinating and leading field research, data management, and research capacity building. He provides input to development, analysis, reporting, and dissemination. Previously, Dr. Alpha has worked in the following offices: the Office of the President as a consultant in the Open Government Initiative, Ministry of Basic and Senior Secondary Education in Sierra Leone, the Medical Research Center, and the Center for Studies of Africa Economies on the Justice Sector Survey in Sierra Leone Project, Innovation for Poverty and Action. Alpha has contributed to several research grants in Sierra Leone, such as the Public-Private Partnership Health, Maternal and Newborn Health in Resource-Poor Communities, and Health System Settings. He has also worked on social accountability projects, including development of a social marketing strategy to promote Ebola treatment-seeking behavior. He has presented on several health and social issues, such as the use of traditional birth attendants, development of set of community Ebola message in Sierra Leone, the realities of teenage pregnancy in Sierra Leone, and also participated in South Africa on social policies to address the challenges of poverty, inequality, and unemployment. Alpha has written articles on Africa and China work together to fight the new coronavirus 2020, the Belt and Road Initiative, the Yellow River Basin, the China-Africa relation, local governance in Africa, Chinese modernization and African development, environmental protection of Sierra Leone, lessons learned from China, the 20th National Congress of CPC brings a better future for the world, U.S. Long Army jurisdiction and its bad consequences for the whole world, collaboration between China and Africa using the Belt and Road Initiative as a catalyst for economic growth, a bright future in a new energy, examining allegations of Chinese vessels engaging in illegal fishing in West African waters. So these are all the topics of article written by our speaker, Dr. Alpha. So Alpha is a PhD candidate in the University of Chinese Academy of Social Sciences. Proud to date, Alpha obtained a master's degree in educational administration from Njala University, certificate on think tank and scholars, certificate on leadership and governance from Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, and a certificate to develop and build smart cities from Academy of International Business Officials, Benji. Okay, so Dr. Alpha, you're also welcome.
Thank you so much, Mercy. Thank you.
Okay, and we have with us Professor Rana Mohamed, who is an associate professor of political science, specialization in international relations, Suez Canal University, fully assigned at the Institute of Arab Research Studies, affiliated with the Arab League for Education, Culture, and Sciences. Professor Rana is a fellow and a lecturer at the National Defense College, a member of the National Defense College Fellowship Research Accreditation Committee, Military Academy of Postgraduate and Strategic Studies. She has authored many books and scientific research, including the writing of the book Western Duality and the Arab Revolution in the English language, preparing and writing the book Egyptian Political Parties in the Arabic and English language, published in the Library of the Faculty of Economics and Political Science, Cairo University. Professor Rana is writing scientific articles and research published in Arabic and English in the field of international relations, quantitative and qualitative discourse analysis, strategy and national security, indicators of Chinese rise and the New World Order, soft power studies, fourth generation war studies, Egyptian-African relation, America-Chinese technological competition, the Russian-Chinese rapprochement and its impact on the balance of power. She is also a professional international trainer in cooperation between Cairo University and Montessori University in the United States of America for faculty members at Cairo University, a certified trainer in combating corruption and developing a modern set of mechanisms necessary to support transparency in Egypt. She also supervises a large number of master and doctoral PhD in political science, strategy, national security, and national defense college fellowship research. So, all right, Professor Rana, you're also welcome.
Thank you so much for the invitation. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. And welcome. Thank you.
Okay, I think you can begin to hear from our speakers now. So please, I'm hoping we have a very interactive section. So do what to send in your question. If you have any comments or views you want to share as well, you can use the Q&A button so that in due time it will be addressed by our speakers. So I think I would like to start with Professor Rana. So audience, please, your speaker, please, your audience. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for the invitation. And really, I'm very excited for meeting you again. The first time was in China and now on the Zoom for a very important topic. Thank you, Mr. Paul, Dr. Olalekan, and Dr. Alpha, and of course, Mercy for the introduction for all of us. And for the attendee, because it proves that it's a very interesting topic. The webinar, and let's be directly to the webinar topic. The webinar topic is very interesting and it's very important due to a lot of things. First of all, the timing, not only because of it comes after the FOCAC and the turning point in the Chinese-African partnership from ordinary partnership to be a strategic relations, but also because we have a transitional point or a transitional turning point in the international world. This mainly is very important because a new standards has been put now. New standards, for example, replacing the issue of zero-sum by
Okay, so I think she's facing a little challenge with the network. So let's take Dr. Alpha's first comment as well on the topic, China's global community with a shared future for mankind. So Dr. Alpha, please take over and give us your first comment as well.
Is it okay now? Okay. Perfect?
Oh, it's okay. It's okay.
So the second point is that I believe that we need to understand the philosophy of President Xi Jinping, because President Xi Jinping has already put a philosophy of reign and a philosophy, as Dr. Paul was already saying, of leadership. We need to understand such philosophy. We need to understand the President Xi Jinping. If we are going to understand the utopian visions, but are these visions are applicable? Are these visions are comprehensive? Some leaders have only political vision. Others have economic vision. I think the uniqueness behind the Xi Jinping vision and philosophy is that it's a comprehensive vision that has a part political, economic, social, ideological, and it's very important, and of course, military and security. This is the second point. The third point is that the P2P diplomacy or the P2P initiatives that Xi Jinping has already made a kind of a base of acceptance for the Chinese philosophy in the whole world. Because I believe that there was a kind of rejection for what we were calling Westernization policy, okay, that it was mainly the Western standards, because we find that these Western standards are mainly double standards, and a lot of crises are proving this. However, the Chinese vision is completely different, or a little bit different from the Westernization point. And this is also another important point to be taken into consideration. So I believe that our webinar is very important, first of all, to understand how Xi Jinping is thinking, because it's very important, how Xi Jinping meaning of vision of modernization, because modernization, it doesn't mean anymore Westernization. No, modernization meaning that each country should close itself and has its own model of modernization. The third point is that it's very important to know what are the mechanisms in order to have a win-win game. China needs Africa and Africa needs China. It is not only a linear relation from the Chinese part. No, both of us have interest, but such a friendship can be based upon interest and can be built upon interest. Of course, politics is an interest-based game. However, we can have this interest, mutual interest between the Chinese and African part. And since this webinar is going to have a lot of lessons learned from it. So this is mainly my points, how the webinar is going to be. Merci.
All right, Professor Rana, a very insightful one there, a good note to start with. I think indeed Chinese diplomatic relations are always based on a win-win situation. At the end of the day, everyone has something to benefit from the relationship as well. Thank you for such a great submission. We would like to hear.
Also, the idea of the common destiny. We need to understand what is meant by a common destiny. Because can we have a common destiny in the future? Because I think the build of the unipolar system has already made us know that they cannot be a common destiny. But now the Chinese vision is how we can build to have such a common destiny in the near future. Thank you.
Exactly. Okay, so Dr. Alpha, please, you can also take over and give us your first submission on the topic as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mercy, and thank you to my colleagues. You know, I always refer to as the China's vision as an all-round vision. You know, it is stated by Xi Jinping that it is a global community which is shared by a particular concept referred to as the shared feature for mankind. You know, you ask yourself, what do we refer to as a shared feature for mankind? What are we going to share? You know, it is an all-round development because it is a vision that emphasizes on international cooperation. You see, to us is very much important. What are we stand to gain? Is it through what? It is through consensus building. That is to us is very much important. which other people refer to as a mutual respect, you see. And in most of our dealings between China and Africa, it's through dialogue. You call, we discuss on issues pertinent towards our well-being. And that's more the reason they could refer to it as a global community. You understand? And most importantly, again, it's about our cooperation on security, collective security. We want to know, since I came into China, believe you me, I have never seen any disruption in terms of law and order. So this again is something that we're going to learn from their own governance system. You see, more especially for some of us that find ourselves in West Africa. So to us is something very, very important. That is collective security in a multipolar world. So China, on this basis, on this global community, which is centered around this shared feature of community, it seeks to foster a global environment where nations work together to address common challenges. Most recently, we've seen wherein we try to address issues on climate change. What are our own inputs? How do we go about the process? And in the end, what is going to be our own outcome? So these are some of the things we take to consideration. Poverty is key. We're now asking ourselves, because the problem in Africa is about economic independence. That is the major challenge. Now China has succeeded to eliminate poverty in their own country. So what we're going to see, we're going to look at their policies. We're going to see their strategies. These are shared feature for mankind. So that at least we will mirror whatever they have got, you know, and try to ensure we cascade it into our own different areas. Since the opening up of China up to date, they have done a whole lot of things. We've brought initiatives in Africa, but sometimes it has not worked for us well because we still have problems in terms of eliminating poverty in our own domain, which for us is very serious. You see, so in that light, we're going to share, they're going to share their own pathway. They've already identified their own pathway towards what? Towards sustainable development. So for us in Africa, I think it's a win-win situation, just like what my sister Rana said. You know, there is a need for us to do more of collaboration in those areas. While again, doing that, we respect our sovereignty. Sovereignty. You know, this one is very much important. You cannot just interfere into other person's own sovereignty. Because the word sovereign means he has a total independence to do whatever he or she wishes to do within the confines of the law. But we've seen the manner to which how we are treated. So China is now saying, let's come together, let's address these issues based on what? Respect, mutual respect. It is key. And if you listen to the President Ramaphosa in South Africa, he mentioned it at FOCAC. That tells you that this is our innings. This is what we want. You know, undue political interference. China says no to it. They said there is a need for us to dialogue. We're going to use all peaceful avenues to ensure we bring parties together, you know, because it is about shared feature, okay? And also what is most important again, China is strategically placed with the kind of initiative they have brought, you know? You've mentioned it. Most importantly, China is the Belt and Road Initiative. To me, and in Africa, is a key pillar of this vision. We promote what? Infrastructural development. In that area, we've promoted trade connectivity. In my own country, believe you me, the ministry, department, and agency, the building that's housed, the ministry, department, and agency, which we refer to as the usual building, is being constructed by the Chinese. The national stadium is being constructed by the Chinese. One of the best roads that we do have in country is being constructed by the Chinese. So we look at all these things, we say, yes, indeed, these are partners, reliable partners to work with. That is the vision. It's not about coercing us. It's about bringing, the needful to the people, bringing development to our own doorstep. And that's more the reason why some of us are here. To garner what? The high-level education, so that we can able to replicate it into Africa. You see? So initiatives, they've done it not only into Africa, but even the Asian country. I'm enthused, the manner at which, when I saw the AIIB, that is the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, they did the partnerships in technological and sustainable development. You see? It also guides that vision. They position themselves as global leader, and that is what is expected from them. You see? So they have a lot of innovation, economic integration, and developmental aid that they've demonstrated. In fact, I was just talking to a colleague in Freetown that with this FOCAC meeting, we've able to get an MOU. We are in because of the 5 big changes of our own president, His Excellency President Julius Maada Bio, talked about agriculture. We want to see how best we're going to provide agriculture for our own people. So we've gotten what, $50 million. So without asking much, they said, you know what, you come with your innovation, and we ensure we work towards your own goal. And this is what China has been doing. So ultimately, China's approach, it aims what? To create more inclusive global order. That promotes what? Economic growth and reduces inequality in the world, fostering peaceful coexistence and shared prosperity. That is the aim of this shared feature. Thank you so much, Mercy. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Alpha. I think a very good submission there, focusing on how China is a reliable partner with its all-round vision of a global community with a shared future, and how we can collectively address challenges based on mutual respect for a shared future, as well as how Africa can also leverage on this strategic partnership to bring development to its own doorsteps. So I think, Dr. Olalekan, you can also take over and share your perspective as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mercy. My erudite colleagues have done justice to the overall theme of the discussion. So what again can I say than to add a few lines, because of our time. But first of all, let me take you back in time. The promise the world made, at the end of the World War II, when the United Nations was established, that they promised to pursue common goals and, through cooperation and selflessness, and what are these common goals? The diseases, ignorance, illiteracy, wars, poverty, unemployment, inequality, and so on and so forth. Decades after, the world is still in that problem, especially Africa. We have been bedeviled, the humanity has been bedeviled by all these scourge, of humanity. Instead, of this multilateral approach, the world is now inclining into populism, into nationalism, into protectionism and minority supremacy. We have seen it going around, becoming, the existing world order. So what China did was to study how all the trend was changing, and when President Xi came into position, his book, The Governance in China, he says, that they have studied from their own history and tradition and culture. They have discovered that it is important to have cooperation, even within China. And China cannot exist without the world. And the world too cannot exist without China. So from isolationism, they were in isolation. So China now launched its reforms and opening up, policies for, more than about 3-4 decades. And today, China has become history. And the principles, the spirit behind this community shared, to build a community of shared future for mankind is just to address what the United Nations has not addressed. So this is the major, underlying, message, that is speaking to us in Africa. And it makes a lot of meaning in Africa because the vision guides action. What China has done, it has put actions into this vision. It has put actions, it has really, given us the tangible, meaning to this. Okay, let us join hands together and build one humanity, that is community. And Africa, because of our experience in the past, because of our neo-colonial, experience, because of these geopolitics that we have seen, we have witnessed, the inequality, the disease, the conflict. During Brexit, we have seen what, during the COVID-19, we saw what China did, and China is still doing it. So this is why I see in that context the community, to build a community, of shared future for mankind, especially in this new era. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Olalekan. Please, I think we can start coming in with our questions. So if you have any questions, please do also send them using the Q&A button so that it will be addressed by our speakers. So I think I have some questions here, and I'd like to start with Dr. Olalekan, because your submission was more focused on materialism and globalization. So I'd like you to throw more light on how this vision, that China's vision of a global community with a shared future, aligns with global trends such as the materialism and globalization, like the UN. How does this vision aligns with the initiatives or the trends when it comes to materialism and globalization, like the UN? Please, your mic is muted.
Oh, okay, thank you. So this is how the China's vision is different and also aligned with their global vision is there. Vision that doesn't translate into action, even translate into action, but not deliver results, mutual benefit for mankind. We cannot point to that. So we have laid a foundation. So what China, because China is a result-oriented country. So China's vision is based on that altruism, pragmatism, at consistency, is at the core of this multilateralism that China is promoting. So at the United Nations, China is doing that. Is also, China builds that kind of cooperation, build the kind of, the group relationship allies with them. Let us use, for example, the Belt and Road Initiative, for example. Over 150 countries are there. Let us even look at the just concluded FOCAC summit. The numbers of heads of state and government in Africa that attended, the number was more than numbers of people of head of state that attended the previous United Nations General Assembly in New York. So what was it, except the Eswatini, the former Swaziland, that did not go. But you can see now that this is how it aligns with the global trend. The trend is that we are coming together. In terms of war, China has also proposed a lot of peace initiatives, ceasefire, with the Hamas and Israeli conflict, with Iran. I was in China when they came to sign these different rivals. The Russia-Ukraine wars. So also, these are the global trends, and this is what China is campaigning for. So multilateralism, with everything that China is also is campaigning for to get results, the globalization and everything. Let us do things together. I cannot live alone. China needs the world, like the fourth principle, and the world also needs China. We should be committed to multilateralism and reject unilateralism. So this is the core message of to have a few shared feature, and since we have shared interest, let us have shared feature for mutual benefit and prosperity. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I think indeed China needs the world, and the world also needs China. Okay, Professor Rana, I think your submission to you made mention of how this particular vision is different from that of the Western world. So we'd like you to throw more light on how this particular vision differs from other initiatives or other visions when it comes to global interactions or international relations.
Thank you, Mercy, for such an important question. But we need first to understand the Chinese concepts or words are different from the Western perspective. For example, if you are going to define what is the meaning of multilateralism, and it was mentioned by the discourse of President Xi, by the way. He said that multilateralism is an effective measure to maintain peace and promote world development. This is the meaning of multilateralism. And it's, of course, different perspectives than the Western point. Another important point that's different from the Western perspective is that multilateralism and shared point of view, and I really assure with what Dr. Alpha and Dr. Olalekan had already said about seeing China as being a reliable source or a reliable partner, as Dr. Alpha said, and Dr. Olalekan said a very important point that all the initiatives that China is mentioning is an action-oriented initiatives. And this, but regarding the vision of China, regarding such how to make such a vision, it's based upon two important pillars. The first important pillar is that we shall have, or you must have, an equal multilateral and multipolar system. This is very important. And this is different than the Western perspective. Because the Western perspective words, even in its words, the North and South, the developed and developing, and the more industrial and the less industrial. So such gap, it is not in the Chinese perspective. This is first point. The second point is, what is the meaning of globalization from a Chinese perspective? It is the same globalization of the American globalization that's having such hegemonic power and such American standards that is the only important standard in the world, or we shall have each country has its own standards. For example, what is the meaning of economic globalization? Economic globalization in the Western vision meaning that we shall have such industrial countries, we shall have such manufacturing countries, we have the core and we have the periphery. This is a very important theory in the American perspective. In the Chinese perspective, the economic globalization meaning, in a simple words, that any citizen shall have food and basic needs without worrying about the prices. It's very simple. Any citizen shall be secured in his own country. This is a very different paradigm than the Western paradigm. The other thing, and it's very important from and different from the Western perspective, that Chinese partnership and Chinese gradual reform, even it's already applied in China internally, it doesn't seek for a sudden change like the Western always discourse. You have to be democratic, you have to be stable, otherwise you are going to be punished, you are going to have such economic sanctions. This is not the Chinese perspective. Chinese perspective is seeking to have such sustainable win-win stability, okay? Just sustainable trade relations, and it's really different than the West. Another important point also, it could be a difference of the Western paradigm and the Eastern or the Chinese and Eastern paradigm, is that the Western paradigm was only saying to us that this is the best model. The Western model is the best model, regardless your circumstances, regardless your characteristics. So the American democracy is the dream. The American democracy is the best. The Chinese perspective is not like this. Chinese perspective is that there is no one model. No, there is adequate model for each country, and each country has its own model of modernization. Each country has its own model of stability. Each country has its own model of growing or economic growth. So this is completely different. Another important point of differences between the Western perspective and the Eastern perspective or the Chinese perspective is that the Eastern or the Western perspectives was mainly based upon military power relations with other partners. If we are calling them partners when we are calling the Western perspective, we were calling it's an interest-based game. And as I told in the first part, it was a zero-sum game. That they don't give us technology, they don't give us anything, they just take oil and take the raw materials from all the African continent in order to give us some food or to be the market. This is different from the Chinese perspective. As Dr. Olalekan already has proved in, for example, the COVID-19, okay? It was a very important crisis that really was a turning point of the true China, what China wants. Because, for example, China has already given us the vaccine, give us the technology of manufacturing the vaccine. This is different from the American perspective. The Chinese role, and we are calling it the diplomacy of crisis that China is making now. For example, the rapprochement between Iran and Saudi Arabia by Chinese supervision, the rapprochement of the Palestinian Hamas and Fatah on Chinese land in order to finish or at least ceasefire for the Palestinian issue. So this is a different perspective because we have theories in international relations. We are calling the Western series of international relations. That's calling that the power is only focused in the American power. But the China perspective, no. We have another philosophy of thinking. So I believe we are shifting or having another shift in paradigm from the Chinese and the Western paradigms. Of course, we cannot replace the Chinese, and this is another important dialogue or argumental issue. Does China is going to have a multipolar or put the standards for a real multipolar system, or is going to substitute United States of America? And this is another question that a lot of analysis now is taking into consideration. Is it China is going to be another replace for the American hegemony, or it's going to be another different paradigm that's different from the American part? And I believe that the other question is or the other answer is very important, that China is not want or doesn't want to substitute the United States of America, but it's introducing some different standards of international world that it needs some time to have such trust in such standards. Such international world that we are living now, it's since the Cold War, and even in the Second International War, this is the pillars of the Bretton Woods system. So in order to replace such international world, it will take time. Taking time in trusting the Chinese philosophy, taking time in accepting that there is a real friend in politics, that there is a real friend that's going to play the game in a win-win basis. So I think the main challenge of China now is that how to make the pillars of trust in the whole world in order to accept the discourse or the Chinese discourse in the world. Thank you so much, Mercy.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor Rana. I think this is indeed clear and enough reason to back the fact that China's vision is different from that of other global strategies for international cooperation. So I think I'll go to Dr. Alpha now. Dr. Alpha, in your submission, you were more on addressing challenges collectively through the global community with a shared future. So I want you to help us understand how this vision can help to address global challenges like the climate change, pandemics, and geopolitical tension. So how does this particular vision help to address global challenges? Thank you.
Yeah, this is very important. I start first by my premise by indicating 3 elements that needs to be taken into consideration in addressing some of these issues and with the Chinese perspective. That is, one is diversity. You know, they believe that they work with each and every country. That is very, very important. And the second aspect is about inclusivity. No one is left behind. No one is left behind based on your political philosophy. No one is left behind based on your own assumptions. What is important here is we have a common denominator that is to address our own challenges. And that is so far, over the years, we've seen China is doing it and is continued doing that again. You understand? And most importantly, again, the third aspect we're going to look at is about inequality. Do we all have the same resources? Do we all have the same capability? Do we all have the human resource? Absolutely no. So therefore, in that perspective, China says, let's come together. Let's form ourselves into these very important areas and see how best we're going to ameliorate the problems we have in our own various communities, more especially in terms of climate change. How are we going to address it? It is not going to be a top-bottom approach. It's supposed to be inclusivity because it affects every individual in the world. But this aspect of hegemony is disturbing us. If we say we agreed, yes, of course, we cannot say we're going to have a unanimous decision. That is the reason consensus building is a very good approach in dealing with such. So China's perspective, they are saying, let's come together, let's dialogue, and let's accept because it is for the general good. Okay, China has aligned itself with the climate change because he adopted it and signed the Paris Treaty. And now we've seen the functionality of it. It's not about just talking, it's about action. I think Professor Rana has mentioned about it. And also Professor Babatunde. It's high time we look about action. It's not about lip service. If you say you're going to do A, B, C, and D, let's see how best we're going to do it and control. But over the years, no, some of these things are not happening. And the worst falls on what? On Africa. And sometimes we suffered. Because of what? Because of these perennial problems. You see? So that is more the reason China is saying, no, let's come together and let's ensure that what we preach, we practice it. Here comes some of the differences we got in terms of the approach. How are we going to ensure we follow it to the letter? China has tried itself to align itself with sustainable development. We've seen the manner in which how they've tried to eradicate poverty reduction, which is one of the sustainable development goal 1 for the United Nations. They have done that. Okay, we've seen the SDG 9 in terms of infrastructure. The place where we live here today, Huangpu district, believe me, the infrastructure that is here, you can equate it with any with New York City. Meaning they have the technical, they have the innovative skills, they have the required skills to do that. So China, all they are doing is just to give us the right approach and say there is a need for us to do it on our own. We see the green development, which is the SDG 13. China's commitment in terms of sustainable development is evident. You can see it. It focuses on what? On green energy, projects and investment in renewable energy. That we've seen. Both the hydroelectric power and globally, which aligns with the United Nations climate action goals. You see? So it is evidence-based. And also, again, we've seen it aligned itself with the global development initiative, a global partnership, which is the SDG 17, which is purely based on the Belt and Road Initiative framework, which involves what? Partnership with more than 140 countries, fostering what? Multilateral collaboration to achieve what? A shared development goals. China has done that. It has also aligned itself with what? With the Africa's 2063 agenda in terms of industrialization and economic growth. The Agenda 2063 emphasizes on transforming Africa through what? Through special economic zones, the industrial parks, the large-scale infrastructure projects, which is directed in terms of contributions. You know, we've seen that. Infrastructural development. We've seen the Addis Ababa Djibouti Railway. We've seen the support, the 2063 focus on creating integrated regional and continental infrastructure to drive sustainable development. And the last one, we've seen themselves on agricultural modernization. You see? So to us, I think the partnership is real. You see, the partnership is real. So with this kind of initiative and their broader foreign policy, it aligns with key global frameworks like the United Nations and the African Union's Agenda for 2063. See. Thank you, Mercy.
Okay, Dr. Alpha, I think this is enough evidence to show that China is actually backing its works with a lot of deeds and action. And we addressing global challenges cooperatively or with cooperation will do us more good rather than we doing it competitively. Okay, so I think there are some questions here in the Q&A section, so I'd like us to address them. Also, you can still come in with your questions as well. So I think we have a question from Sibiri, and he's asking, is the vision or goal of creating a global community with a shared future counterproductive to the UN's vision? If not, can China pursue these goals within the UN's framework as they are currently doing with their peacekeeping efforts rather than pursue this vision as Chinese-led? Please, did you get that?
Yes, I got it.
Any of you can address that?
Yeah, let me quickly respond to that. Yeah, it's a good question, and I think it aligns with that. Let me see the 5. How maybe align. You see that is counterproductive, kind of. But yeah, instead of counterproductive, you know, the way the person asked that question, it actually is the opposite. It aligns, you know, very much with United Nations goal. For example, the 2030 SDGs, you know, that was, you know, the global blueprints to address, you know, major problem challenges definitely in developing countries. And also the 2063 agenda by AU, you know, which has the, you know, the 7 pillars, you know, to address, you know, kind of, okay, let us, you know, we want a high standard of living, healthy living, quality of life. This is what China is, as we can, you know, campaign for, well-educated, you know, citizens in Africa, science and technology innovation in Africa. You know, this 50-year, you know, the AU, you know, set for itself. So, but because of, you know, the politics, the intrigues, the different positions, you know, of what I said in the beginning, that as the world set up United Nations, not quite long, they realized that there are divisions in terms of geopolitical, geopolitics and and political economy. So definitely, China now looked inward and began to have its own vision and to relate with the world. And what China did, it's not new. It was also what other global powers they are also doing in terms of having different frameworks, different platforms to engage with their partners, their allies. For example, you say America has USAID, the UK has the UF ID, UK ID, and also so many of them, they have different platforms they engage. They have G7, they have this and that. So different platforms. But by the time, for example, the China now did the BRI that really unleashed, infrastructure development in Africa and other, many countries, about 150 countries in the world. It was then they realized, the G7 realized that they have to have a counter. So they now, devoted $600 billion for that when they met in Europe 2 years ago, led by President Joe Biden. So it is in line, it is in tandem with global vision. But what China has now made some difference, coming up, approaching it with humanistic, altruistic, vision to make it that this thing, all this, vision and this vision, all the principles we have laid out for ourselves for development will be realized. So this is what makes the difference. But there was there has not been something. China has not done anything different, but it's in line with global platforms. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Alpha. Dr. Olalekan, please, Dr. Alpha, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, just to he has done justice to that question. What is most important again is about coordination. At international level, we do more of coordination. We do partnership based on our mutual respect. You see, that is fundamental. We are not saying United Nations has something different from the Chinese vision. All what we are saying, there is a need for collaboration. There is a need for cooperation. There is a need for partnership. Okay? So by so doing, we're going to have the world we want. You see? But if we just have unilateralism, that doesn't work in the 21st century. So that's more the reason we're now saying, let's coordinate, let's have dialogue on some of the sensitive issues and see how best is going to resonate with our own development trajectory that we have. Okay, as an African, we have our own pathway. We've identified our own pathway. Okay, that is more the reason we established the African Union. And the vision of 2063 aligned with the vision of Xi Jinping. But what we're doing? We are doing what we refer to as we coordinate our efforts. We coordinate with the United Nations and say, this is the right trajectory because it resonates with our own developmental trajectory. That is very much important, you see. So there's nothing wrong for us to have a vision, the Chinese vision, which will actualize our own dreams, you see? Because whatever we're going to do is based on timeline. And trust me, we've suffered for far too long. And for us, we shared with the Chinese vision because one thing is we have a common destiny. That I will say it. You see, we have fought wars, and up to date, we are still fighting it. It is only Africa that has, it's only Africa as a continent that has a medium of instruction which is a second language, a foreign language. All these are some of the things that we need to address. You see, so with our own African Union agenda, you look at the Chinese agenda, you look at United Nations, all what we are doing is we coordinate, at that particular level, and we do what we refer to as a realistic thing, you see. And these are the kind of interventions we are currently doing as an African, within the Belt and Road Initiative, FOCAC, the United Nations, and the EU. So it is not something you can say it is detrimental, To me, I think it's worth, and it is good for us to have some of these things together. We work together for the common good of all mankind.
Okay, Dr. Alpha, I think we'll take the follow-up question because enough clarity has been given on the first question. So the second point is that the UN, which includes China, has so far failed to achieve such a vision after 75 years. So how can China get closer to achieve such a vision?
How China should, is it a written question? Can I read it? Okay. How
Yes,
China,
please.
sorry? Okay. Or a goal of creating a global community with a shared future. Okay. Okay. So, let me first just tell a very important point of trends here in the Chinese vision. China, with its own initiatives, not only the PRI, because a lot of people, when we are speaking about China, are only mentioning the Belt and Road Initiative. But no, China has a lot of initiatives. It has a PRI, it has the Global Development Initiative, it has a Global Security Initiative, it has Global Civilization Initiative, and it's also a very important initiative need to be taken into consideration. What are the aim of all of these initiatives? The aim of all of these initiatives is to have stronger, greener, healthier global environment. If you are going to have these words and make such harmony with the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, and the 2063, the Africa we want, and even the Chinese Vision 2035, all of these are very connected. Connected in what issue? Connected, first of all of these initiatives are people-centered initiatives. It is made by the people, and the people are governments. It's all perspective. It is not an individual perspective anymore. And here is a very important also argumental issue, because some people were speaking about the BRICS and Shanghai is going to replace the main international organizations that we are having that's related to the Bretton Woods system. However, China is not thinking like this. China is thinking that whenever there is an institution, and these institutions are having a role not under its own, is going to have a more just and equitable world. So if UN is going to have a much more just standards, if it's going to have a no more double standards issues, I think China is going to adapt with this agenda. Okay, this is a very important. Another thing is the issue of sustainability, and this is a very important. I think Dr. Alpha and Dr. Olalekan has already mentioned it, because sustainability is very important in the Chinese vision, and maybe in the President Xi discourse after the FOCAC, he mentioned some points of change also about the sustainable security relations, to another important turning in the African. But to be honest with you, these challenges cannot be overcome by China only. The global challenges. It is not the only rescue for all the challenges. These are challenges because the definition of the threat and the challenge has been changed. The traditional threats and challenges was only political, economic, and maybe social ideological challenges. But now we are facing a new kind of challenges, like, for example, climate change, as you already mentioned, food insecurity, water scarcity. This kind of challenges need to have a new kind of mechanism. We are calling resilient states. A resilient state that need to be more flexible states with more flexible mechanisms. We cannot have an outsider model that's going to face challenges. No, this is not the Chinese way. The Chinese way is that it's going to give you some, maybe a little bit know-how, give you some technologies in order to face your challenges by your own model of development, by your own path. And this is different from the other points, okay? Another important point is that, and I think also it's Dr. Alpha has already mentioned, is the Chinese model is that we are not going to leave any country behind. All the countries are going to be inside such development and such modernization path. However, each country has to make such harmony between ecological or the ecological part of what we are calling the nature and the human. And this is also another important difference from the Western perspective, which, for example, we are calling now for the fourth industrial revolution and the artificial intelligence that's replacing humans. But China is not working like this. No, China is calling that there should be a harmony between human and ecological part, a harmony between human. Another important point, it's very important. China tools are very different. So, and here I'm going to focus on diplomacy issue or diplomacy tools. And soft power has already mentioned, by the way. Other kinds of power is completely different paradigm than the Chinese soft power, because the Chinese soft power is going to not affecting you, not manipulating you, but I'm going to have such winning development. And this is another also important, different from the two perspectives. So such competitive challenges is very important. Of course, it's going to lead for a more cooperative, a more just world, a more prosperous world. However, it's not only the thinking that it's all about China. No, China has a part and Africa has a part. Like China has a part and Europe has a part. The whole world is like in the game. So are we going to be an actor in such game, or we are going to only be implemented the game upon? So this is a very important question that we need to have now. My last point, okay, my last point, because I know that we are running out of time. My last point is that the Middle East, the Africa, what we are calling the developing countries, okay, it's very important that we are sharing the same common ideas between us and China. We're very depressed from the colonial legacy and colonialism and all this stuff. So we now need to have such non-interference. We need to respect sovereignty of each country. We need to respect each country role model and each country model of reigning and country its own model of leadership. So I think we share a common point of view that we can build upon. And this is a very important point. It's not only the PRI, it is not only the initiatives of China, but I think Chinese vision of 2035 and 2050 is going parallel to the Sustainable Development Goals and going parallel to the Agenda 2063 that Africa will want. And by the way, the agenda, the 2063 agenda is much more broader than the SDGs. SDGs is only economic, social, security, but the SDG is much more broader than them. And I think China is pushing hardly in order to achieve and implement the 2063 agenda in all the pillars. And if we are going to make a little bit comparison between the discourse of President Xi after FOCAC and 2063, the 10 points of President Xi and 2063, we are going to find that a lot of similarities between both of them, but we turn the utopian points into mechanisms of realization and into action. Thank you so much.
Okay, Professor Rana, I think that was a very great one. So it's like now we've had more insights on what the concept actually is and how China's initiatives are also in alignment and driving or leading the way for a more connected and global community with a shared future. So I think before we wrap up, we'd like to take some perspective on Africa as well. So there is a question from Dr. Abibu, and it's asking, it's interesting to see the definition of the Western and Chinese perspective of multilateralism, modernization, partnership, etc. But however, are there any perspective for Africa too as well? So I think any of you can take that and address that for us quickly.
Okay, this is a very important question, but as I already mentioned, it is not only a task or a Chinese task. It is a double task between China and Africa. China has already put its vision, and by the way, it's declared vision, and now President Xi has already made 4 books, okay, speaking about his vision and his philosophy, and how he wants China and how he wants the common destiny for the future. However, how can we benefit from China? And this is another question that needs to be discussed.
Yeah, thank you.
How can we benefit economically? Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's very important.
In terms of modernization, in terms of industrialization, in terms of civilization, all the documents, yes, the blueprint 2063 that proposed the blueprint for 2063, our African vision is encapsulated in that document. Also in West Africa, yes, in the spirit of Pan-Africanism, in the spirit of brotherhood, living together. You are, yes, my brother, you're my sister. This is how, and that spirit is what the Chinese too are relating with us, brothers and sisters. Chairman Mao, has laid that foundation too, when he was, even before a majority of Africans gained their independence. So in terms of modernization, in terms of every definition, every vision, every spirit, the doctrine principles are in our integration cooperation documents. And this is how we engage with China, with any other countries. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm agreeing with you but also we can say that Africa is a rich continent. And this is a very important point to be taken into consideration. Rich in not only in political and in ideology and the civilization, but it's considered also a new market for China. It's very important. But at the same time, we need to have such sufficiency or self-sufficient of economics of each country. Another thing is that if we need to benefit from China experiment or a Chinese case, as a lot of analysts are saying, we need to have such lesson learned. What are the uniqueness of the African continent? If we are going to be unique in agriculture part, so we need to have such lesson learned and the know-how of how to make more progress in the agriculture part. For example, the infrastructure, the railways, whatever. But the point is that I think we need to, each country has to close in itself and say what its priorities for modernization, what its priorities for the interests in order to have such a win-win game, a bilateral game. And by the way, multilateral doesn't contradict with bilateral, because I saw that it was written in one of the questions on the chat. Bilateralism, okay, you can increase your bilateral relations in the scope of the multilateral of common destiny. So they do not contradict with each other. But the point is that each country has to know its interest, and the interest is a very important word, but friendship is based upon interest. Each country has to prioritize its interest and see if, for example, I need to be good at agriculture. What are the lessons learned from the a Chinese perspective, if I want to be a manufacturing country, in educational part, in whatever, in artificial intelligence, so in media, for example, so I going to take what is the priorities for me in order to listen, learn from the Chinese expert. And thank you so much for such an important question, by the way. Thank you.
Okay, so I think we'll be wrapping up very soon. Well, I would like to ask the last question on Africa. So we want to, I think Dr. Alpha can help us address that question to know what Africa leaders should do or African institutions should prioritize in order to fully leverage China's vision of a shared future. So we want to know on the side of Africa, what can Africa also do, African leaders and institutions prioritize in order to fully leverage China's vision of a global community with a shared future. So I think Dr. Alpha, you there.
Thank you so much, Mercy. And I think it's very important. The initiatives so far that we've seen from Chinese, they are not inimical towards development, okay? All what we are seeing here is this. There is a need for us to do what other people refer to as institutional reforms and capacity building. It is one way that Africa needs to do, and we need to implement it. You know, for far too long, we have weak institutions in Africa. Well, that again, you can see it is a result of so many factors that has led to us having it, okay? But I will not bore you with that. But I think in my own experience, there's a need for us to put premium into institutional reforms and capacity building, okay? It is high time our universities in Africa do what is expected of them. And also, again, it is high time for us as academics to see, you know what, we have to point it out. It is not about criticizing, it's about collaborating with our government to ensure they do the right thing. Believe you me, here, where I'm currently studying, there is an institution that has more than 3,000 professors, the University of Chinese Academy of Social Sciences. Believe me, they serve as what? As an institution to help initiative with government, do a whole lot of research. You understand? So this again is something that we can leverage as an African. You know, if we do it, then we can able to maintain the status quo. But as it is, we have to build the human resource. And that's more the reason we are having this kind of collaboration with Chinese. You see, so that at least we have the required skills. Mark you, we have the right attitudes and uphold the good values to man those affairs. Then we can say Africa is going to do better things. But as it is, these are some of the problems we are faced with as a continent, you see. And also, again, we have to improve on our data. There's a serious problem in terms of to have an adequate data in Africa, you know, which is again, then also again, we have to look at our political governance, just like what Professor Rana says. We have to look at the conditions in which we are, fix our own problems, we'll have a homegrown solution to some of these problems so that at least we'll create what people refer to as stability. You see, but for far too long, Africa is just like followers. You know, we want to say no to some of these things. It's high time now we say, you know what, we identify our own pathway and move towards strategies that will enhance a positive development for Africa. I think that's supposed to be the cornerstone in terms of development, you see. Because when you look today, Africa is the least. We are in battling with poverty. We are in battling with health. We are in battling with education. So how are we going to manage ourselves? As a continent, we are the only continent that has left that has an instructional mode that's being used through second language. I think I give kudos to East Africa. They are doing much. They are trying, you know. But for us, no. So we have to do that. That means we have to build the human resource, you see, and more especially again, to have, our political governance have to take this into consideration. It depends on the men and women you choose, you select for leadership that will enable to transform Africa. And here goes, wherein we'll talk about integrity. You see, because here we see so many people, they sacrifice for their own countries. There's a need for us to call, in Africa today, we have brain drains. Why? Because of what? Because of economic challenges. You see, so if we are able to take over our institutions and do the needful, I hope we have a brighter future. More especially when people we are now saying statistically by 2063, Africa will have that burden population. You know, we can have the population, but if they don't have the required skills, then what are we going to do? If they don't have the right attitudes, we don't promote the good values, then we are still in a mess. And this is the kind of vision, and I think it aligns with the 2063 vision for the African Union. What is expected of us as an African is to domesticate that vision within our own different countries and ensure we don't pay lip service to it. For now, for some of us, we positively dispose, you know, with what China is currently doing. And we want to mirror what they have done and try to cascade it into our own different countries. But I hope, I still have hope that one day we'll be able to do that. I am hopeful. I'm hopeful.
Okay, so I think it will be ending our webinar very soon. So before that, I would like to take the closing remarks of our speakers, a very short and brief one, closing remarks on the whole perspective and discussion for today. So Dr. Alpha, I think you can just give us your closing remarks.
I want to thank you, Mercy. I want to thank the Africa-China Center for Policy and Advisory for giving us this opportunity, at least to give our own input. I hope it will be well processed for the good of mankind, because this kind of platform is supposed to be used to articulate our own aims and objectives as Africans, so that people in governance will look at it and say, yes, indeed, we are trying our level best to give what Africa's due. So without much ado, I want to take this opportunity to thanking you for giving us this audience and giving us this platform. Once in a while, we'll pop in again to give our own expert views. But from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you so much for giving us such an opportunity. Thank you. Shisheni.
All right, Dr. Alpha. So Professor Rana, you can also give us your closing remarks as well.
Okay, so thank you so much for the invitation for a very important webinar. And as Dr. Alpha and Dr. Alakshan has already mentioned, but we cannot respond to all these questions in one webinar. We need a lot of webinars. And I believe that the role of Africa-China Center is very important as being a think tank, as being a kitchen for ideas. And this is our role now, is that without ideas, we cannot have a future. So being a think tank in order to bring more ideas, and this, I think what we already done today, is to have, to answer the question as, despite Africa is very rich continent, still we have such challenges. We need to answer this, and we need to be honest with ourselves that we have to have our own, like China has its own Chinese dreams that already turned to be Chinese reality. We need to have our own African dream, and our own African dream in order to be turned into a real Africa that we want. And maybe we can have at the end, Made in Africa slogan. Maybe we can have Innovated in Africa slogan. Maybe we can have Built in Africa. This is a very important slogan that we can dream. dreams come true with the capacity buildings that Dr. Alpha was speaking about, with the people oriented with Dr. Olalekan was speaking about. So thank you so much for invitation, and thank you, Mercy, for moderating such an important webinar, and of course, Dr. Paul. And long live China and long live Africa, but the Africa we all want and we all deserve. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Professor Rana. All right, so Dr. Olalekan, please, your remarks as well.
Yeah, thank you very much. This is our own community. This is our own continental online community for a shared future for Africa. So continue to do what you are doing. We need to educate the narratives, that have really been, skewed, against us. We begin to, educate, add to the body of knowledge with what we are saying, and trying to, create, begin to raise awareness, create a more, sensitization to, and carry out advocacy like we are doing, so that you not just end up, just, talk and end up in the shelf. So we need to, the youth, the younger generation coming up now, they need to be educated. Some things are politically, Africa is changing. When we look at the Central Sahel, we know that things are, are not like before. And, we need to, put the truth out there for, for the public to educate the mind of people, so that let us write our own stories. Let us write our own suffering, our own achievements. No one can do it for us. Thank you for what you are doing at your center. See you next time. Akwaba.
All right, thank you, Dr. Olalekan. So we'll be wrapping up very soon and then our webinar here. So I think today has really been a very, very interactive and insightful section. Indeed, much insight shared on the concept of the global community with a shared future, how Chinese initiatives are also leading the way forward for a world or an interconnected community or global community with a shared future, and also the role that African can also play to leverage on this particular platform to bring development to its own doorstep. So I think it was a very insightful one. And again, there is a wake-up call for Africa and other countries, yes, to have institutional reforms and capacity building to leverage on the vision of a global community for a shared future. And also we got to know more about how the vision aligns with global missions rather than being counterproductive to us. So I think it was a very, very insightful section there. So we'll be ending very soon. So once again, I'd like to thank you all for your participation. Special thanks going out to our distinguished speakers, Dr. Olalekan, Dr. Alpha, Professor Rana. We are so grateful for your time in taking us through such an insightful section. And once again, to our dedicated attendees, it was good to have you all join us for an insightful section. So this session has been recorded and is going to be uploaded on our YouTube page, where you can visit anytime to access this particular session with other videos as well, other webinars that we held on BRI, FOCAC, and WhatsApp. They are all uploaded on our YouTube page at the Africa China Center, where you can always access for different perspective or issues on the current trends in Africa China space. You can also do well to follow us on all social media platforms, LinkedIn, Instagram, X, TikTok, and what have you at the Africa China Center to continue the conversation and get more insights and updates when it comes to Africa-China relations. And not to forget, you can also follow all our speakers. They are on LinkedIn. You can follow them and reach out to them at any time to continue the conversation as well. So I would like to thank you all. And once again, ACCPA is open to collaborations and partnership, both private and government. So you can always reach out to us via the email that Mr. Primpon shared earlier in the chat box, so that we engage or take it from there. So I'd like to thank you all once again for your participation, and it's a bye for now. Thank you all for your participation. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.